said the city would break. Instead, it bent, block by block, floor by floor, under the weight of tanks, drones, and men who have forgotten what silence sounds like. On November 7th, the war's center of gravity surged back to the coal-black streets of Pokrovsk and the mine-scored fields of Zaporizhzhia. Russian columns tried to muscle their way through with T-72B3s and BMP3s up front and infantry clinging to the armor. Ukrainian defenders let them come, then snapped the trap shut with anti-tank teams, artillery, and swarms of FPV drones. And in the chaos, a German-made Leopard 2, one of Ukraine's most prized machines, was claimed destroyed amid the day's brutal close-quarters fighting. The symbolism will get headlines. The tactics will decide who holds the ground tomorrow. This is the fight as it exists now. Steel and software in a knife fight. In Pokrovsk, Russia keeps pushing with massed assaults to shatter the pocket. Ukraine keeps peeling those assaults apart before they reach critical speed. The rhythm is vicious, short, violent armored lunges, infantry infiltration through broken blocks, glide bombs to stun, then another lunge. Ukraine's high command has been blunt about the stakes, pivoting units to the Dobropilya axis to relieve pressure and keep the city's lifelines open. Ground reports and independent outlets all capture the same picture: claustrophobic urban combat, contested strongpoints, and a front line that moves by meters and wrecks, not by maps. Zaporizhzhia hums with a different tempo, but the same lesson. The lines around Orikhiv and Mala Tokmachka have become a recurring experiment in mechanized attrition, and when Russian commanders roll the dice on armor-heavy pushes, the bill is steep. Recent large-scale thrusts east of Orikhiv, some involving dozens of vehicles, were recorded and torn apart by a mix of mines, anti-armor fires, and drones hunting optics and tracks. If you've watched the footage, you know the sequence. A lead tank with a trawl hits a belt, BMP3s compress to cover, FPVs pour in, the formation wobbles, then shatters. It's not cinematic, it's mechanical, and it keeps happening. What about today's tally? Ukrainian battlefield channels and unit summaries from the Pokrovsk and Zaporizhzhia sectors claimed at least 16 Russian tanks and 38 other armored vehicles knocked out over the day's fighting. Numbers that fit the pattern of recent weeks, even if independent verification always trails the smoke. Count them as claims, backed by a day filled with geolocated clips of BMP3s and T-80 BVMs burning and columns blunted short of their objectives. Russia, for its part, reported Ukrainian losses and, over the week, touted the destruction of a Leopard tank. Both sides are messaging. The wrecks are real. The politics of a single destroyed Leopard make easy bait. The operational reality is harsher and less dramatic. A Leopard is not a talisman, it is a tool. Over months, Ukrainian Leopard 2A4 crews have hammered Russian infiltration groups around Pokrovsk, diced up armored packets near Kharkov, and soaked up enough FPV hits to become minor legends before some finally succumbed. The very same week, Russian outlets bragged about a Leopard kill. Other clips showed Leopards and Bradleys deleting vehicles in alley-length gunfights. Machines come and go. The exchange rate is what matters. On November 7th, the exchange rate still punished any armored spearhead that didn't first smother the drones and the men with launchers on the flanks. To visualize how Ukraine keeps blunting these pushes, picture the ambush triangle. At the tip is a mined choke point or a rubble-narrowed street. The sides are flanking teams with Javelin or Stugna P and mobile drone crews stacked one behind the other. The moment the lead vehicle pauses, mine, mobility kill, or smoke, the sides collapse inward. FPVs go first to rip off optics and jam tracks, then the ATGM gunners punch through hatches and turrets. Artillery brackets the tail to trap anything that still runs. From the ground level, it feels less like a battle and more like an algorithm running find, fix, finish, and let the wrecks write the map. If you're still watching, by the way, you're exactly the kind of viewer this channel is built for. The detailed, patient ones who don't just want explosions, you want consequences. So consider subscribing now so you don't miss the next breakdown. Let's get back to how this changes the game. Pokrovsk itself has become a maze of micro-battles. Independent reporting and satellite imagery show a city chewed down to its frames, with Russian units digging into the north and east, and Ukrainian counterattacks preventing a clean encirclement. The city matters because of its rail links, because of the roads threaded west toward Myrnohrad, and because both sides have decided it matters. Russia wants the flag, Ukraine wants the pause that follows a failed flag raising. The result, non-stop assaults measured by the dozens each day, defenders rotating under fire, and commanders trying to keep a corridor open while denying the enemy the story it craves. Zoom south and the geography gets wide, the kill zones longer. Zaporizhzhia's fields have seen the war's fiercest arguments over whether massed armor can function under drone-saturated skies. The evidence, near Orikhiv and Mala Tokmachka, keeps coming back the same. Without electronic warfare dominance and disciplined multi-axis suppression of the ambush triangle, armor bleeds faster than it breaks through. That's why you keep seeing bunched vehicles and stalled lines, and why the side that moves first without the bubble tends to pay more in steel. On the macro clock, November is a cruel month to find out your logistics model leaks. Mud gives way to freeze, movement improves, concealment doesn't, repairs slow, recovery assets get targeted, crews get brittle from the tempo and from the constant hum of quadcopters overhead. The army that survives winter best is the army that keeps its kill chain alive and its repair bays busy. Which brings us to the less sexy news that matters more than a viral clip: mobile sustainment. American Rheinmetall just landed a $31 million contract to demonstrate rapid damage assessment and repair systems for Bradley fleets, supporting both the US Army and Ukrainian forces. Translation: more forward repair nodes, faster triage, shorter downtime, more vehicles that come back from the dead. It's the combat multiplier nobody cheers for on social media, and the one platoon leaders quietly pray for. Air defense is the other shadow system shaping today's ground fights. Over the last week, Germany delivered additional Patriot batteries to Ukraine, part of a months-long effort to thicken the shield over key cities and force Russia to spend more for less effect. Norway isn't shipping Patriots from Oslo's inventory, but it is writing checks to put more launchers and missiles on Ukrainian soil via German channels. In practice, that means fewer ballistic and cruise missiles landing where they're aimed and more Russian targeting cells forced to rethink what acceptable losses means. The United Kingdom added a quiet but sharp edge this week, transferring another tranche of Storm Shadow cruise missiles. No one will say how many, it's not that kind of war, but the effect is always the same: depth. With Storm Shadow, every rail yard feeding the Pokrovsk fight, every air base facilitating glide bomb sorties, every oil node keeping fuel flowing to the front is a fair target when weather and tasking align. That is how a defender buys time, by making the attacker's rear feel temporary. NATO, meanwhile, isn't just watching from the bleachers. Across Romania and Bulgaria, Exercise Dacian Fall 2025 has pushed brigades through the paces of mechanized coordination under drone-thick skies, bridging rivers, and knitting air defense layers into the maneuver plan. Up north, the alliance activated Eastern Sentry after Russian drones violated Polish airspace in September, a standing posture that has British Typhoons and other allied jets flying air defense missions over Poland while ground-based systems tighten the weave below. These drills aren't abstraction. They mirror exactly the multi-domain problems being solved over Pokrovsk tonight. So, why does November 7th matter? Because Russia is still trying to impose momentum with armor and mass, and Ukraine is still proving that layered defense, when properly staffed and fed, turns that momentum into a scrapyard. Because the loss of any single Western tank, painful as it is, doesn't change the exchange rate on a day when multiple Russian armored groups lose cohesion under drone and anti-tank guided missile fire. And because the strategic scaffolding behind the front, Patriots, Storm Shadows, mobile repair shops, keeps arriving, which lengthens Ukraine's endurance and shortens Russia's windows of opportunity. There's also the blunt truth from the field. Even as Russian formations rotate in fresh troops toward Pokrovsk, Ukrainian commanders are counter-rotating elite elements, injecting small, lethal packets of mobility where the line wants to bend. That's why you see reports of helicopter insertions, why the same blocks change hands twice in a day, and why the map feels so elastic. The price is high on both sides. The payoff, for now, is time for Kyiv to harden the winter line while draining the attacker's appetite. Numbers help frame the day, but they never tell the whole story. Ukrainian sources logged dozens upon dozens of assaults on November 7th across the Pokrovsk axis alone. The broader front saw more. The precise count of tanks and BMPs turned to hulks will settle only after analysts finish the geolocations and units tally their after-action reports. What we can say without hedging is that the city remains a grinder. Zaporizhzhia remains a minefield grid with drones in every square, and the side that solves the drone EW air defense puzzle faster decides where the front line stands at dawn. If you're trying to understand the human scale beneath the steel, listen for the brief moments of gallows humor on the radios. A driver swears he can smell the batteries when FPVs are close. A gunner calls the next ambush a speed bump with opinions. An infantry squad jokes that if the sky had a traffic report, it would just say, "Avoid Pokrovsk, congestion due to unmanned construction." Nobody's laughing long, but those lines tell you something the footage can't. They've adapted. They expect the drones. They plan around the drones. And when the moment comes, they still run toward the sound that everyone else is running from. Russia will adapt too. Expect denser smoke discipline, more cage kits, better spoofing, and serious attempts to synchronize EW bubbles with armored thrusts. Expect smarter route clearance, more decoys, and creeping multi-axis pushes to pry open the ambush triangle before committing the main body. The race isn't to build the perfect tank, it's to build the perfect combined arms bubble around an imperfect tank. That, in a sentence, is this war's new physics. For Ukraine, the mission between now and the deep freeze is straightforward and cruel. Keep the corridors into Pokrovsk open. Keep the artillery fed. Keep the drones flying. Keep the Patriots stocked. Keep the workshops humming. Every 24 hours the line holds is another day of training for fresh crews. Another day of integrating Western kit. Another day of pulling damaged vehicles back from the edge and shoving them, uglier but willing, back into the fight. The future of this front is being measured not only in destroyed columns, but in the quiet logistics math of cables, spares, batteries, and bearings. Out in Zaporizhzhia's tree lines, the calculus is similar. Russian battalion groups that once believed mass would earn them momentum now find that mass mostly earns them attention. From drones, from gunners, from operators tucked into ditches with a tablet and a 5-pound bomb. Ukraine can't be everywhere, but it doesn't have to be. It only has to be at the right angles at the right time with enough unmanned reach to turn a push into a parking lot. The footage from Mala Tokmachka and the fields east of Orikhiv looks repetitive because the mistakes are repetitive. And until the attacker stops repeating those mistakes, the defender will keep cashing the same check. As for that Leopard 2 headline, accept the paradox. Celebrated when it hunts, circled in red when it burns. The machine is mortal. The method is what matters. A lost Leopard hurts less on a day when the other side loses multiple tank platoons and a convoy of BMP-3s for the trouble. A saved Leopard means nothing if the corridor behind it collapses. This war keeps punishing hardware worship and keeps rewarding the side that thinks in systems and cycles, not in trophies. Russian press releases about Leopard kills will keep coming. So will videos of Russian columns getting unmade in 3 minutes of ugly geometry. Both can be true in the same week. Meanwhile, NATO's drills and deployments are not background noise. Dacian Falls river crossings and brigade-level maneuvers in Romania are rehearsals for the exact kind of reinforcement that would matter if the fight spilled beyond Ukraine's borders. Eastern Sentry's air policing missions over Poland are a bet that deterrence, visibly flown and persistently armed, can keep accidents from becoming excuses. On days like November 7th, when Pokrovsk's streets are all muzzle flash and concrete dust, those quiet guardrails matter more than they get credit for. Russia tried to buy ground with armor. Ukraine made them pay with angles. The defenders claim dozens of vehicles destroyed. The attackers claim a Leopard for the week's tally. Look past the noise and the shapes are clear. Ukraine's combined arms defense, drones, ATGMs, artillery, engineers, and hard-learned timing, keeps turning breakthroughs into scrap. Western aid, even when it arrives in unglamorous crates labeled repair or interceptor, keeps adding hours to the defender's clock. The winter line is not a line at all. It's a living system. Tonight, it's still alive. Before we wrap, a quick word to our community. This channel lives on deep dives, not drive-bys. If you want straight talk and verifiable context every time the headlines start shouting, tap subscribe, hit the like, and drop a comment on what frontline puzzle you want decoded next. Pokrovsk's South Corridor, Zaporizhzhia's mine and drone evolution, or how Patriot coverage changes Russian targeting. You push this reporting forward every time you share it, and that means more people get the real picture behind a 20-second clip. And now, as always, we end where the soldiers begin, with the job still in front of them. Somewhere on the edge of Pokrovsk, a crew is climbing back into a machine that smells like hot metal and cordite. Somewhere in Zaporizhzhia, a drone operator checks the wind and rearms. Somewhere along a muddy road, a mobile workshop hums to life under a tarp. The map will move again tomorrow. Tonight, the defenders did enough to make sure it moves on their terms.